It was the first case in which we used my new mediation program and found it to be quite successful.
Now, how did this mediation go forward, especially in a criminal case like this?
Well, the statute that was enacted in 2009 but has never been used in this jurisdiction basically requires the consent of both parties to engage in mediation. And so it really requires an open mind to come and sit at the table and talk about ways to resolve a case. The Statelen case was essentially at a standstill, and I got together with Mr. Statelen's attorney, and we decided that mediation would be it would be worth a try. And if it was successful, then we would probably ultimately save the county up to hundreds of thousands of dollars in avoiding the cost of a trial.
Now, what were some of the aspects that went into the mediation? What was actually mediated?
So the mediator takes the file and reviews it from basically head to toe. Everything, familiarizes himself with everything to do with the case. It's somebody who's experienced in criminal law and who's able to then either identify weaknesses in each side's case or make a prediction as to how a jury's going to come down. So the mediator considers basically the same things that the parties and the judge would: the strength of the case, what the victim wants to see happen, the person's criminal history, their level of risk that they present to the community should they be released, things like that.
Now, in this case, the victim was, I understand, the suspect's wife and also the sheriff's deputies. Is that correct?
Correct. The victim. So domestic cases can be mediated as a matter of law. So that part of the case we didn't involve in the mediation, just because the statute precludes that. But we talked about the case in which Mr. Statelen drove his car at the sheriff's deputies and was charged with assault with a weapon and criminal endangerment. The victim of that portion of the offense was Captain Tony Rio, and he was very involved with me in the mediation process.
All right. Now, so did he sit down with the mediator as well, and with the with Mr. Statelen's attorney? Was all this done together in a room, or was it done separately?
Basically, Peter, how it works is that when you do a mediation like that, the parties are in separate rooms, and the mediator kind of moves between them and makes a presentation to each side. He alternates, and which was done in this case. So I was in a room with Captain Rio, and Mr. Statelen and his attorney and his family were in a separate room.
All right. And so how long did it take to come to the final satisfactory conclusion? It took about an afternoon. Okay. And so what was the final sentence that Mr. Statelen received?
I'm driving, and I don't have the file. It was I can give you those details later, but it was essentially 8 years commitment to the Department of Corrections with 5 of those years suspended. It's a commitment to the Department of Corrections, and he was remanded to the custody of the jail, as I understand it, and then the Department of Corrections decides placement. In this case, he was initially placed on the intensive supervision program, which is not necessarily incarceration, but it can be at any time. So for the next several years, the Department of Corrections has the ultimate authority where to place Mr. Statelen when they want to place him. Mr. Statelen is considered to be an inmate in the eyes of the Department of Corrections.